a number of times this year, if all goes well. It would be nice to have one of these sessions per topic. And I specifically chose the happiness door because it is actually not in the book. It is something extra that sort of dropped off of the backlog because there was no time for it anymore when I was writing my book. But it is a nice topic, I think. So I thought it was a great one to start with, also because we're still in the experimental phase. And next time we would start with a topic, we would continue with a topic that is actually in the book, probably Kudo Box or one of those. So let me tell you briefly about the happiness door, how it emerged, the idea. The very first time that I did my Manager 3.0 class, the 2-day workshop, was 4 years ago in the Netherlands, in Gouda. You know how to pronounce that, people? Gouda, that's how we Dutch do that. Not Gouda, as the Americans would say. No, it is Gouda. And I had a 2-day class there, and I did the first day, and everything was going fine. I was quite happy about that, but I also sensed that I needed a different way of getting feedback, faster feedback from the attendees. And of course, I was planning evaluation forms, but I realized during the first day that evaluation forms at the end of 2 days is too late. I cannot change anything anymore during the workshop when I read something on an evaluation form. But that is the traditional approach in classes and workshops. So I thought when I was home about this problem, and I also somehow thought of the happiness index, of measuring people's engagement throughout the day or the week or the month. The happiness index is a popular practice already in Agile communities and beyond, actually. And for some reason, these ideas started going on and on in my mind, getting feedback from people in a visual way, which is often done with feedback walls, for example, in Agile teams. People putting sticky notes on walls, and I thought maybe I can combine that with the happiness index. So just have people put stickies on a door or a window or whatever, but then at the top means good and at the bottom means bad, either happy or sad. It's just two ideas that already existed, and I merged them. This is typically what creativity means. You steal ideas that already exist, you just combine them in a new way, and then you have something that didn't exist before. So I started using that happiness door idea, and people liked it. And I can share with you the very first picture I took of the very first happiness door. So let me share my screen. Hope all goes well. Share screen, and moving to my, let's see, my photos over here. Do you guys see the photos? Yeah, all right. Oops. All right, like this. So these are the pictures that I took of the very first happiness door that I implemented. And as you can see, they had numbers on them. Number 1 was a very unhappy. Number 5 was very happy. I actually wrote happiness index at the top of the door at that time. And this is my cousin Eric admiring the first sticky notes, and apparently people were quite happy in that workshop. And then I started doing this more and more often, and at some point I changed to pictures, as you can see here, because I noticed that the numbers are often confusing for people. What does 1 mean? What does 5 mean? I was in Germany at one point, and there I noticed that some people associate 1 with good and 5 with bad. And it is different in other countries. So I thought, no numbers anymore, I need pictures. It also makes it more fun. So I started using these pictures. And then later I consider I can make the pictures even better looking by using suns and clouds, storm clouds, for example. As you can see here, this is a picture I took of a happiness whiteboard. This was actually not a door, but a whiteboard. Doesn't matter, it works. I had numbers here, but also pictures of suns and storm cloud. And well, the people in Japan were very, very happy in Tokyo, apparently. And this is how I started applying it. I have here a picture sent to me by someone of a happiness door that was drawn. I love that. So the door itself was drawn, but the picture's actually on a wall apparently, or something. Now I'm quite enthusiastic about the copying that has been going on, because I have been at conferences where, and I believe I don't have pictures of those conferences, but I've been at conferences like Agile in Europe or a conference in Scandinavia, for example, where they applied Happiness Door in the conference room, which is a great idea, I think. So at the end of a session, people are asked to give feedback on the session. Just leave the room, and there's a door there with suns and storm clouds, and just leave your sticky note there. Write something on it if you want. If you put it high, it means you're happy. If you put it low, it means you're unhappy. And the nice thing about that, I believe, is that you get a very fast indication of how people felt during that session. It's just one glance. It takes less than a second, and you already have you already see the general pattern of the sticky notes, basically. And I really, really like that. And of course, lots of stickies had comments on them. I know other conference organizers, for example, the Norwegian Developers Conference in Oslo, they use other kinds of systems where people drop colored cards in a box, like a red card, a yellow card, or a green card. That works. But then you do not have the written feedback. They're just empty cards that people drop in boxes. And still, you have to wait for somebody to count the cards, so nobody sees the results until 2 weeks later when the organizers decide to publish the results. And I like the openness and transparency of the Happiness Door. Everyone can see right away what the happiness in the room is. So I've been using this ever since in my workshops, in my 2-day classes. At first I started doing this after or before lunch on the first day. So even after 3 hours, I already informed after happiness. But I noticed that most people thought that this was too fast. They hadn't really formed their opinion by then. So I stopped doing that, and then I started doing that at the end of the first day. That made more sense after a while for me, because I didn't really get useful feedback before lunch on the first day. But I know other facilitators who have other results, so it may depend on your audience. But the visualization obviously makes a difference, and this is key, I believe, with this practice. And then I'm going to have you ask your questions. The key thing here with the Happiness Door is we cannot take it too seriously as a metric. I mean, let's be serious. This is just sticky notes on a door. A professional research agency would cry when they saw me measuring happiness like this. It doesn't make any sense. But the purpose is not to get an exact metric of the happiness of the people in the room, like, is it 3.85 or is it 4.05? Who cares? What you want is happy people in the room. That is the purpose. So what I noticed with the Happiness Door is that it actually contributes to the happiness of the people in the room. They like it. So the metric itself is changing people's behaviors. And if you make it colorful and you make the door look nice with pictures on it, people like that. It adds to the atmosphere. And that is, of course, very different with measurements by professionals of physical things, like measuring temperature outside. Well, I try to look at the clouds very, very often, but I never was able to make them go away here in Brussels or in Rotterdam, where I live. So me observing the temperature does not change the temperature. But with a happiness door, that is the case. If people looking at a happiness door, they feel happier because this is such a nice way of giving feedback. So it basically makes the sticky notes go up, which is very interesting, complex thing that is happening in the class. So that's why I like the happiness door. It is simple, it is easy to implement, and I've heard people using it in conferences as well. At the end of meetings, at the end of a 1-hour meeting, you just ask everyone, could you leave a sticky note on the door? If you put it high, it means you thought it was great. If you put it low, it means you're glad to be out of this room. But it would be good for me to have some feedback. And an empty sticky note is fine as well. That counts as feedback too. And so far, what people told me, they had great results. So that's my 10-minute explanation of the happiness door. Easy enough, I think. Then maybe you have some questions about it.
If you have a question, why don't we do it the old-fashioned back in elementary school way, at least my elementary school, where you raise your hand.
Raise your hand. I love that.
People talking all at once. And remember, there's the gallery view in the upper right. If you were late in coming, click on gallery view on the upper right so you can see everybody's video at once. I know we had some questions beforehand in the doc, so we'll go to the document.
All right. I saw Artemisa raise her hand, right?
And then Luigi's next.
All right, good.
He raised his virtual hand, so that's bonus points.
Okay, so go ahead. What's your question? You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so do you think this technique can be applied to any number of people? I don't know, maybe 20, 60 to 150?
Well, yes. I came up with the idea just for a small class of 10, 20 people, and that worked. And then I was pleasantly surprised to see that conference organizers use it for big rooms full of people to give feedback on a keynote. The only restriction is your door has to be big enough, obviously, for all the feedback. And there is a logistical issue. Where do people get their stickies and write on it? Because I've seen it implemented badly as well at big conferences where people left the room and nobody was putting anything on the door because they weren't told, they weren't asked to do this, and they didn't know where the stickies were. So there's a logistical issue, of course. How do you give sticky notes to 150 people? But that is a thing that you can solve, I'm quite sure. I have seen it implemented with large rooms of people. And the nice thing is you can take a picture of it. And what I saw organizers do that was very smart is go to the door when everyone had left. And they wrote the numbers on all the stickies. So number 5 on the top ones, number 4 on the next level, number 3 on the below. So all the stickies, they saved the position on the happiness door. And then they took them off and they gave it to the organizer. And I thought that was, the speaker of the room. And I thought that was so cool. So I once got a handful of stickies with lots of comments about my session. And there were very nice comments, and also the numbers 5, 4, 3 that indicated how happy people were. So I think it worked. Who was the next one?
Luigi was the next one, and then
Luigi?
we have Rosalinda.
All right, and then Martin. All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
I like the fact that you can combine the happiness metric with the feedback. And I was wondering if these happiness doors can be used as a rough index to understand if people are happy about what they are doing, explaining, and improving if necessary. or as you said, as to make people happy. So if we can also use the fact that higher votes or lower votes influence other people in the feedback they are giving. So the one thing is having an index and objective feedback, but using the influence of one people on the other one, we can attain a goal that is having people as much happy as we can.
Right, correct.
Okay.
So you basically achieve two things. You get faster feedback. That was the original problem that I wanted to solve. With, but you can do that with a feedback wall as well. There's no difference. The happiness door adds something to it by measuring, quote unquote, the happiness in the room. But the main effect it has is that it also changes the happiness of people. And everyone should be aware of that. I mean, I'm not making a secret that I am manipulating people with the happiness door, and they love it. And they are aware of it at the same time, which is no problem in my opinion. As long as you don't take the whole happiness index thing too seriously, because what we aim for is more engaged people, and not, as I said, an exact precise number of happiness, because really that doesn't really exist in my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And then we had, I believe Martin raised his hand.
No, it was Rosalinda first. So sorry, Martin.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't take over your job, Lizette. My fault. You tell.
You're fired.
I'm fired.
So Rosalinda, I know you said you don't have video, but you may have audio. So if you'd like to try to unmute yourself and ask the question, that's also fine. Or I can just ask it for you.
Okay. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Great.
Okay. My question is, when is more useful to use a 3-scale metric or a 5-scale one? You know.
Yeah. Good question. Well, I prefer 5 scale, and maybe that is just a habit. I have never, I think, tried 3 numbers, because I feel this just is not enough. But on the other hand, I also noticed that people rarely use the bottom 2. When I have a rate of 5 numbers, they almost never use the 1 and the 2. And it's not because I'm so good. I don't believe that. It is because they lean towards being respectful and considerate. And if they really don't like something, then they usually put it in the middle.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't know how that works out with 3 numbers. It is worth trying and comparing people's behaviors with different scales. Also using an even number, 4 instead of 3 or 5. I have no experience with that.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
All right, Martin, bring it on. You're next.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
Hi. The usage for the events feedback is quite clear. Do you have any rewarding experiences how to transform it to common life, to everyday situations? Is it suitable for these situations at all, or is it only suitable for event feedback? When you go outside of the room, you have the door and you leave it. But if you live in your office, you are going, walking, talking, and talking to people. Is it suitable to have any experiences? Thank you.
Well, that's a good question. I do not have the experience, but I am happy to see that other people experiment with taking this practice and copying it elsewhere. Like, I did not come up with the idea to use it at conferences, but it happened. I did not come up with the idea to use it at the end of a meeting in an organization, but it has happened. So I'm quite sure there are other places where you can use it successfully. Maybe with your family back home. Ask your kids to put a sticky on the refrigerator before they go to sleep. Write something on it and ask them to put it high if they feel good, or low if they're not feeling well. Would be a nice experiment. I'm not raising any kids at this time, but that would be something that I could try. Just to give you an example of how to transfer the idea to other contexts. So I think it's worth experimenting, but my experience limits itself to workshops and classes.
Next is a follow-up question by Michal. Sorry for mispronouncing your names, everybody.
It's Michal, but it's okay.
Okay.
Michal, all right. Hi, Michal.
Hi, I have a follow-up question for this ratings question, because I'm a conference organizer, and we are giving our participants ability to vote on the talks.r in our call for papers. And we gave 3, -1, of course 0, and +1. And in the beginning we had also 5 scales, but I had really hard time naming those steps. Right? What is the difference between 1 and 2? What is the difference between 2 and 3? So my question is, how do we call those steps? What's the difference between them in those five step scale?
Well, I don't have names for them. It is just a scale of 1 to 5, like a temperature scale. The temperature gradients, they don't have names to them. It is just people interpreting it themselves, being somewhere between very, very unhappy and very, very happy. So you could say, well, 4 is somewhat happy and 2 is somewhat unhappy, and 3 is meh, or something. I don't know. It is a good question, because you need to think about naming things when you use evaluation forms. I agree. I have struggled with that myself, with the evaluation form for the mentoring30.com website, where we have evaluations of classes, and we have a net promoter score, which is 1 to 10, and each of the numbers, we felt it needed the description. So that can be very difficult indeed. What is the difference between great and excellent? I don't know. And then still, English does not translate well to other languages with some of those words. So I think each context needs a different solution. It is also known, for example, when you have evaluation forms, that it's often better to have an even number of choices, so that people cannot simply pick the middle one. Because when people are not sure, they simply pick the middle one. There's plenty of science, research confirming this. So you want to basically force people to think. Do you lean towards positive, or do you lean towards negative? And do not allow the middle one. This issue does not occur, I felt, with a happiness door, which is vertical. Then when people don't know, then they tend to put the sticky near the top, because they only put it lower when they have really something to complain about. And if they don't feel they have something to complain, when all is going fine, then they choose 4 or 5. Yeah, good question. I don't have an answer. Sorry, I failed. I don't know what words you should use per number. I don't have words. That's basically my answer.
So I think that we're going to go to some of the written questions that people sent in before the meeting. And Christian,
Good.
one of these, I believe Christian Winter, I believe that's the Christian that's on the call. Is that right?
Oh, he's the one in the jet engine. Yes.
Yeah, you still have a jet engine. I'll ask for you, sadly, if that's okay. Damn. Yeah, we can't hear you at all, so I'm going to mute your audio again for the jet engine to go off. Sorry. It really is like going into a tunnel.
Yeah, there's a wind tunnel or something. But we have your question in the document.
Yes, the question is: do you suggest keeping the sticky notes from lunch break on the door and ask to add more, a second bunch in the afternoon?
Yes, well, what I did indeed, I kept them throughout the day, the sticky notes, and I removed them at the end of the day when everyone is going home. Then I basically cleaned the door and I looked at the results, and then I always evaluated the next morning and said, well, this was on the door. Some of you were very happy. Some of you asked, one of you asked, can we increase the temperature a bit? Or can we go a bit faster? Sometimes I point out that the feedback is contradictory. Like it has happened that one person asked, can we go faster? Another person said, it is going too fast. Well, doesn't mean that their comments are invalid. I just point out, look, we have different opinions here, so I will just simply go as fast as we went yesterday. It has happened several times, contradictory feedback, but I always made sure that I addressed what was on the door, and throughout the day I left the door. I didn't touch it, and sometimes people put an extra sticky note in a coffee break or something because they were really happy about a game, for example, and they wanted to express it. And then it's great to have a happiness door because that gives people a chance to express their gratitude or their happiness, or maybe something that annoyed them. It has happened also that something at the bottom emerged at the halfway during the second day, and that was because there was a noise from the room next door or something, and someone's really annoyed by that. So every now and then I glanced at the happiness door to see if there was a new sticky note, and then I always called out what was on it. It was often anonymous, and I never asked, almost never asked who wrote this, because maybe people want to be anonymous. That's okay. I just said, someone asks to increase the temperature. Is everyone okay with that? Then I will do it. And then people nod their heads. Okay, we'll do it. I don't need to know who was the one who put the sticky note on the door.
So Christian had more questions, but I want to make sure we get one from everybody that we can before the end of the time, which is which officially now, but we'll continue just for a few more questions. Just a few minutes. And the next one is from Tony James. So Tony, go ahead and unmute yourself. We'll see if your sound works. It's on the lower left corner of your screen in case you're looking for it. And I'll wait just a second. If not, I'll ask the question because it's a very nice question. Oh,
hello.
Great, got it.
Hi. Hi, my question is, how do you convince skeptical managers that happiness is a good thing? This is from personal experience that not everybody believes that happiness is a good thing.
All right, it's time to draw this to a close. Thank you, everyone. Oh, this is a good question. Tony, is it? Yeah, Tony. So my short answer, the only thing that I have done is refer to science, but I also quite aware that many people are not convinced by scientific facts. There's still people who do not believe in evolution. Well, so be it. You can argue until your face turns blue, but at some point you'll just have to give up. There's plenty of evidence that says that happy people are more productive, that engaged employees achieve better results. And the best I have been able to do is simply point to the research, and if they believe it, great. If they don't, well, there's nothing much that I can do, in my opinion. So I'd be happy to know if someone else has experience with that, because that allows me to learn maybe a trick or two as well.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you too.
So we've got just a couple. Does anybody else have questions? If you want to raise your hand, otherwise I'll go to one more of Christian's questions. Christian in the wind tunnel. I'm scanning it's like playing bingo to scan everybody's videos. Okay, so the next one is, do you review just by your own or with the attendees of the training after they return to the room? I believe we answered that.
Yeah, so you can do both, of course. Usually I did it myself. I walk through the door, I take off the sticky notes, I stand before the room, and then I deal with each individual sticky. But I know other people who collect the participants, they convene together, and then they go through the stickies. I'm sure both work fine. Maybe one works better than the other. That might depend on the kind of audience you have. If you have a room full of people, I sometimes have like 30 people in the room, and of course you cannot deal with all the sticky notes, and it's easier just to point out the ones that stand out instead of addressing all of them.
All right, I'll do one more question.
Okay, good.
And then afterwards, it was asked by Martin, I believe, if you have further questions, just ask them in Twitter using hashtag M30Workout. So, and we'll spend some time answering those. Okay, so just one last question. It's a logistical question. Any advice when the door opens to the inside of the room?
Yes, find yourself another spot. Sorry. Yes, I had that several times where the door is not the right place. Well, then I use a happiness window I have had, and happiness whiteboards. I have had a happiness pillar in the middle of the room. Whatever, be creative, as long as it is a place that people can see from where they are sitting, because that is what I found important. They need to have that visual cue that over there is our happiness door. We can leave feedback on there anytime we want, when we get ourselves a coffee, when we leave the room. And so the backside of the door, when it swings outward or whatever, is not a good place. If the room works like that, you'll have to find an alternative.
So, in the very last thing, then before we go, I'll leave another. I'll put another link to the virtual happiness door for this. So, if you have any feedback or want to just leave a sticky or something somewhere on this session, feel free. And Martin had a simple question that if you guys want to participate before we go, the text gets saved. But as where are you from? So if you want to put that in the text in the chat. That would be really fun to see where everybody's from.
Oh, that's nice. Yes.
Great idea. I'll do that in the future for everybody.
I think we have a quite international audience. Look at that. Germany, Sweden, Croatia, Italy, Czech Republic, Romania. Wow, Mexico. Sweden. Awesome. UK, Polish. Good. All right.
Well, thanks everybody for joining. This was a big experiment. We weren't sure how it would work. If you liked it or if there's things we can improve, please let us know. We'd like to do these short sessions with just a quick presentation and a Q&A afterwards with a bunch of people on video. I think it's way more fun than a webinar. We can see each other and learn more about each other.
Indeed. And nice questions. And don't forget, everyone, if you don't have it already, nice book. We tried to go look at that. Look at that. That is Martin. Thank you. A bonus point for Martin. Thank you.
And indeed, we will. I think give away one book to an audience member today. So we'll announce that. We'll announce that. If you don't have a Twitter handle, we'll announce that on your email. But we'll let people know. Exactly. There will be one happy person. That was our idea, I believe, for this year. For each of our online sessions, we'll have one happy person winning a copy of the book. It is very heavy. As it is 1 kilogram. As I said also in another call today, if all other practices fail, then at least you can throw it at your manager. That would be very successful, perhaps in some cases. Just kidding, of course. But it's full of actionable stuff. And Happiness Door, as I said, is actually not in there because it dropped off my backlog. I had no time for anyone. But the next time we'll discuss a topic that is in the book. And I think, Lisette, that will be the Kudo Box. Kudo Box. Kudo Box will be there for the next one. All right. So thank you, everyone, for joining. It's been a pleasure. And if you go to bed, sleep well. Indeed. All right. Bye, everybody.